The New York Rangers and general manager Chris Drury ended up having an absolutely phenomenal beginning to the 2025 NHL free agency on July 1st. When things got kicked off there, the Rangers on day one ended up making 5 total kind of moves there. Some signings, 1 trade, of course, but they made 3 kind of really good, impactful moves there and 2 absolutely incredible moves as well. So in today's video, we're going to kind of break down all the 5 moves the Rangers made on July 1st. They're at the beginning of NHL free agency, and we're just going to kind of go through each one of them and break down these moves here and really talk about the good and the bad of each of them, because I think with what this team did on July 1 there, on July 1st, I think Chris Drury definitely put this team in a much better position, heading into next season already with what he's done than compared to what this team was looking like at the end of last season. So let's get right into things here and start off by taking a look at the first move that was made there. And we're going to go kind of in order there from, the actual kind of moves happening there. And the first one, of course, was Vladislav Gavrikov, the top, arguably, player overall in free agency. At that point there, at the beginning of it, it was down to pretty much Nikolai Ehlers or Gavrikov. And of course, Gavrikov was by far the top defenseman. Really the only kind of true top 4 caliber guy left that is a defenseman, and he ended up joining the Rangers there on a very good deal. This was something that I got a little worried about there because we heard all the rumors about the Rangers kind of heavily being interested in going after Gavrikov there, and it seeming like a pretty perfect fit for both sides. But of course, we ended up seeing a guy like, for example, Ivan Provorov sign a pretty massive contract there where he nets a total of $8.5 million per season. So he has a cap hit of $8.5 million for the next long while, of course. I believe it was 7 years. And with that happening, I was like, oh crap. I would definitely say Gavrikov was a clear better defenseman, and obviously still is a better defenseman than Ivan Provorov. So seeing that deal happen there, it being 7 times 8.5 per season, I got a little worried there thinking maybe Gavrikov's going to actually get, above that kind of $8.5 million mark, approaching that $9 million mark. But he doesn't, and he ends up signing, I would say, honestly, when you kind of judge this market right now with, the guy like Provorov getting paid $8.5 million there, I think this was a fairly kind of team-friendly deal. Now, it wasn't some, A+ home run, kind of absolute massive major discount, but I think the Rangers definitely did save an extra $1.5 million there or so on top of what he definitely could have potentially gotten maybe somewhere else. And I have no idea whether or not that's the case or not, but after seeing a guy like Provorov get 8.5 there, and then we see Gavrikov sign for 7 times 7, and he is, I would say, a top pairing caliber defenseman, and definitely will be an amazing shutdown kind of defensive defenseman, big, tall, tougher veteran guy to go alongside Foxy possibly. So I think this was an absolutely incredible pickup, and getting him for, $7 million per season there with that cap hit, I think is honestly quite incredible. The next move that happened there, we ended up kind of seeing, obviously we started hearing about the Keandre Miller trade, but at this point it did not officially happen until we got the official news of Will Kohley signing back with the Rangers there as he was an RFA, a restricted free agent, as his entry-level contract did just finish, and he ends up coming back on a 2-year deal worth $3.9 million per season. That's the cap hit there. And to me, that is not surprising at all. That is exactly about the kind of number I thought. I kind of speculated it was going to be something around a 2-year deal in the kind of low 4 range there, something around that kind of 2 times 4 mark, something right around there was kind of my guess. He ends up getting 2 times 3.5 there, so it wasn't too far off at all. This was the range I kind of expected there because he only had that kind of one monster season. Of course, there had a good 2023-24 rookie season there, and more of a 4th-line role. Didn't play absolutely incredible there, but, played solid enough there. And then, of course, heads into this past season there where he ends up figuring something out there in his development, and he obviously took some pretty massive step forward in his overall kind of development there. He became a much better all-around player, producing at a great level offensively, but also, being a great penalty killer, good defensive winger as well, and still, bringing that physicality. So I think this is obviously someone who's going to be a key player for this team for a very, very long time. Him getting a 2 times 3.9 deal makes a lot of sense there. He's coming off his ELC. He'll want a shorter-term deal possibly to, at the end of this now, possibly then maybe he'll end up signing a longer-term kind of monster deal possibly if he does continue to take those steps in his game. But I think this is a more than fine contract there, and honestly, it was a bit cheaper than really kind of what I was expecting, like I said, considering this market, because when you kind of judge other players around the league there, it sometimes can give you a good sense on maybe what some guys are going to sign for. But, of course, in this case there with the Rangers, when you kind of compare with some other guys there, Kohley and Gavrikov both did kind of sign maybe a little bit less than what, the actual kind of market would suggest. But carrying on, though, And now taking a look at the official trade the Rangers did make on Tuesday, July 1st, and that was, of course, sending away K'Andre Miller in a sign-and-trade deal, which did see the Rangers sign him to a 8-year deal worth $7.5 million per season. Of course, then the Rangers get back a first-round pick, which is top 10 protected, a second-round pick. Both those picks are in 2026, and they also get back a very good, promising, young 22-year-old right-handed defenseman who I do believe does turn 23 in November, but Scott Morrow, a very talented young right-handed defenseman, obviously helps kind of solidify that right side there and adds a little bit more depth as well, but also definitely could be one of those players, if a guy like Braden Schneider does make that jump to the left side there, which he has done in the past for this Rangers team and back in his junior days as well. If he does make that jump to the left, which I'm kind of hoping for, we definitely could end up seeing a kind of bottom pairing there, a third pair of either on the left side, Susi or Hovakanainen, alongside Scott Morrow, the new young defenseman the Rangers picked up in this trade with the Carolina Hurricanes. So I think overall this was an absolute A+ pretty much trade there. I mean, I think the Rangers got back way more value than I kind of expected there. I was hoping, and I thought it was pretty realistic to maybe get just a bit above that kind of, first round pick kind of range. Or maybe it would be like a first and a third, that kind of range there, like the kind of offer sheet compensation kind of suggests there. But he obviously ends up getting a whole lot more than that there, a lot more than I kind of expected. And he ends up going for a first, second, and Scott Morrow, who I think Scott is a really promising young player. Like I said, there definitely has a lot of talent there. Looks like a pretty promising kind of two-way defenseman. And picking him up there, he's got 6'2" size there, so not bad at all. Solid all-around defenseman from what I can tell there. We'll see how he develops. There had a bit of a sample size in the playoffs and in the regular season there with the Canes, but is definitely someone who hasn't played a ton in the NHL, but did have a really great AHL season there. So I think he's definitely a pretty kind of promising guy to keep an eye on there going forward with this Rangers squad. And the Rangers also ended up deciding to make a couple kind of minor and kind of depth signings there as they went out and got, first off, Justin Dowling on a 2-year deal worth $775K per season. Just a solid kind of depth forward there for the organization. Will probably start in the AHL to begin next season with the Hartford Wolfpack, and definitely could be called up at some point there, kind of like, like the Riley Nash was and kind of Alex Belzil, just some solid kind of veteran forwards have in the AHL, and if needed, they can be called up, of course. And then also we did see Taylor Raddysh sign a 2-year deal with the Rangers with a $1.5 million cap hit. He is more than likely going to be a third line kind of winger for this team. Definitely be some good competition for guys like, Gabe Perreault, Brendan Othman, Brett Berard, as these are some guys who I think are definitely going to be in the kind of heat of things to really go after some of those kind of third line wing spots there. There's going to be some good competition now, especially after adding in a guy like Taylor Raddysh. So I think this was a smart and good kind of depth move for this team. Doesn't hurt the cap space situation too much there. I mean, 2 years, 1.5 mil, not too bad at all. And I think this is someone who can definitely provide a solid kind of role there in the third line, and can probably put up something around like 25 to 30 points, something around that kind of range. There definitely is quite realistic if he does play that kind of full season there on the third line. Anyways, that's pretty much going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Of course, if something breaks, some breaking news happens, I'll of course make a video as soon as I can, but pretty much every single day, you're guaranteed to see a video about the New York Rangers at 10 a.m. Eastern time on this channel. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on these moves here the Rangers made on July 1st. I think a couple of them were absolutely incredible there, especially that K'Andre Miller trade, and of course, that Gavrikov signing. Let me know your thoughts on these moves in the comment section down below. I'll catch you in the next one, and let's go Rangers.